Back to another episode of FitChat. I am your host, Jenny Turner, and March is National Nutrition Month. So what better way to celebrate it than talking about processed foods? Now, just a reminder that this session is educational only and it should not be intended to provide medical advice. But let's go ahead and dive right in. So first, we're going to test your knowledge here. So for Americans aged 1 year and older, what percentage of their daily calories comes from ultra-processed foods, or UPFs? A, 36%, B, 47%, C, 55%, or D, 64%? See if you can answer that question. If you guessed C, 55%, you're correct. So according to a survey conducted from August 2021 to August 2023, for Americans ages 1 and older, about 55% of their daily calories came from those ultra-processed foods, or UPFs. For those ages 1 to 18, nearly 62% of their calories came from ultra-processed foods. Now, the most common ultra-processed food choices were sandwiches, burgers, cookies and cakes, and salty snacks like chips and sugary drinks. So what are processed foods? The definition is very broad. So according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or the USDA, it's any food that has undergone changes to its natural state. It may also include the addition of other ingredients such as nutrients, preservatives, flavorings, and more. So by this definition, nearly every food in the grocery store could be considered processed, but the degree of processing and the nutrient content varies widely across foods. So there are different ways to classify processed foods, and one of those methods is called NOVA. Now, NOVA has 4 groups. Group 1 is unprocessed or minimally processed foods, those that are mostly in their natural state without added fats, sugar, or salt. Now, examples of that are like fresh produce, fresh meats, poultry, fish, nuts, eggs, milk, rice, oats. And then group 2 is processed culinary ingredients made from group 1, foods processed by pressing, refining, grinding, or milling. So examples of that would be like oils, butter, vinegar, honey, or maple syrup. Then moving on to group 3 is processed foods made by adding sugar, oil, and or salt. So examples of that could be your canned fruits, your canned vegetables, your canned beans, salted or cured meats, canned fish, cheese, and fresh breads. And then group 4 is ultra-processed foods. Now, those include additives to enhance the taste or the convenience, such as stabilizers and emulsifiers. So examples of that would be cakes, cookies, donuts, those frozen dinners, candy, and soft drinks. So let's test your knowledge again. True or false? It's important to avoid all processed foods as much as possible. True or false? If you guessed false, you are correct. Now, the degree to which a food is processed doesn't always align with nutritional value, and there are times when processed foods can even have some benefits. So let's talk about a couple of examples of foods and how they might look at different levels of processing. So let's begin with oats. Now, unprocessed oats are called whole oat groats, and they come from just harvesting the oats and removing the hulls that are not edible. Whole oat groats are often available in health food stores and take the longest to cook. Steel cut or rolled oats are minimally processed. And then instant oatmeal with added sugar and preservatives is a processed food. A packaged oatmeal cookie is an example of an ultra-processed food. So you can kind of see that timeline of the oat from the beginning to the end to where it's ultra-processed. So now let's look at apples. A fresh apple is an unprocessed food. Packaged apple slices are minimally processed. And then unsweetened applesauce with certain additives is a processed food. And then an apple juice drink with added sugar and coloring is an ultra processed food. So many ultra processed foods are higher in added sugar, sodium, or saturated fat, and lower in dietary fiber and other nutrients. However, that's not always the case. Now, certain foods that meet the definition of ultra processed, such as non fat Greek yogurt or many whole grain breakfast cereals, can be rich in very important nutrients. So, ultra processed foods, or UPFs, are in the news a lot, and there are some downsides to many of them. Now, studies link eating patterns high in UPFs to higher risks of chronic health problems like heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Now, these studies aren't perfect and can't determine cause and effect. Now, certain types of processing, such as removing peelings on produce or refining grains, can reduce dietary fiber. Heating or drying foods can destroy nutrients, such as certain vitamins. And while many manufacturers can fortify certain foods to add back nutrients that are removed, such as adding vitamins back to breads and cereals, it's not the same as the original version. Now, some UPFs are higher in calories and low in nutrients. Many are high in added sugar, sodium, and saturated fat. UPFs are often faster to consume and maybe less satisfying. So for example, it's much faster to open a package of chips or drink a fruit drink than it is to wash and cut up those fruits and vegetables. Now, when foods are softer, easier to consume, and require less chewing, they may be less satisfying per bite and easier to overeat. So just some fun facts there. It's important to keep in mind that not all processed foods are bad, and there are situations where they could actually be beneficial. So first, processed foods can be convenient. Options like pre-cut produce or instant oatmeal can be great time savers when you're in a hurry. Canned beans that can be quickly rinsed and drained are a lot faster than soaking and cooking dried beans, and they're still rich in fiber and nutrients. So depending on where you live, fresh produce may not always be available, or it may be traveling a long distance, losing nutrients and flavor along the way. So frozen and canned produce, on the other hand, is processed at the peak of freshness and can be a great choice. So look for vegetables without added salt or sauces and fruits without added sugars or syrups. So try to read those labels. Some processed and fortified foods are important sources of nutrients. So for example, infant formula is a processed food that is a vital source of nutrition for many babies. Milk is often fortified with vitamin D. Certain forms of processing, including pasteurization, cooking, or drying, can reduce our exposure to harmful bacteria. Some processing delays spoilage of certain foods and helps create a stable and predictable food supply. So there are some positives to those processed foods. It's easy to forget about beverages, but many of them are processed foods as well. So several beverages are high in added sugars and calories, including sodas, lemonade, sweetened coffee drinks, energy drinks, fruit punch, and many others. Those calories can really add up quickly and provide little to no nutritional value at all. Now, functional beverages are a rapidly growing category for beverage sales. They're often presented as healthy options that support immune health, energy, sleep, gut health, and more. Many are still high in added sugar, in addition to other ingredients such as prebiotics, probiotics, vitamins, adaptogens, collagen, and others. Now, many of these products are costly, but the research supporting their benefits is very limited, and they can also be risky for some people. They are often a form of supplementation, and for a person taking other dietary supplements, it could just increase their risk of getting too much of a nutrient. While moderate use might be safe for a healthy person, there could be safety concerns for some, including those who are pregnant, breastfeeding, or being treated for a medical condition. So just be mindful of that. Now, most processed foods will have food labels, and this is a great place to learn more about their nutritional value. So here are some things to look for. Number one, check the serving size. Everything on the label is the amount in one serving. So if you eat 2 servings, you would need to double everything on the label. Number two, calories tell you how much energy is in a serving of the food. Number three, most of the label displays nutrients. Choose options with less sodium, saturated fat, and added sugar. Number four, use the percent daily value column as a guide. So a value of 5% or lower is considered low in the nutrient, which is good for things like sodium or added sugar. And then a value of 20% or more is considered high. Now, the ingredient list is also a good place to look. So the ingredients are listed in order by weight, with the most abundant listed first. So for example, this is a good way to identify whole grains. A whole grain bread or cereal will list a whole grain ingredients such as whole grain flour, whole oats first. So watch for ingredients that mean sugar, like corn syrup or dextrose. Those should not be listed at the top. The length of an ingredient list can sometimes be an indicator of UPFs, but not always. So for example, certain whole grain cereals may have a lot of ingredients just due to the nutrients that are added. On the other hand, potato chips often have just a few ingredients: potatoes, oil, and salt, but they're very highly processed and low in nutrients. So you can't always go based off of the number of ingredients. So the bottom line for processed foods: choose a nutritious eating pattern. Your overall pattern of eating matters more than a single food choice. You want to include a variety of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean protein, and healthy fats. When you do choose processed foods, consider the nutritional value. Incorporate nutritious processed foods, which may save you both time and money. Examples of that include your frozen or your canned fruits and vegetables without any added salt or sugar, canned beans, whole grain breads, whole grain pastas, and then processed foods with little nutritional value, like those chips, cookies, candy, sugary drinks, can still fit, but the key is moderation. If you want to enjoy these foods, just choose them in smaller portions less often. So, what are you going to do next? Here are some ideas for some small steps to move forward. Read the food label on a packaged food to learn what's inside. You can swap a salty snack for veggies or a handful of nuts or seeds. So instead of that chip bag, reach for a salty snack like veggies or nuts. Reach for fruit instead of a candy or other sweet treat. Fruit has a lot of natural sugars, so you're going to get that satisfying taste of sugar instead of eating candy. Choose water in place of a sugary drink. Water is always the best option. Your body is mostly water, so it needs water to survive. So try to drink water in place of that sugary drink. And then you can set your own goal. What are you going to do next? Try something new. One of these options is great, but if you have something else in mind, go for it. All right, you guys, that is everything you need to know quickly about processed foods. I know there's a lot of information out there, so I tried to just minimize all of that and give you the things that you need to know. So hopefully that was helpful to you. If you have any questions at all, you can always reach out to me. I'm here for you. But that was our March episode of FitChat. I look forward to seeing you next month. Bye.